Hello, everybody, and welcome to another of my live streams with Roger Hanson. Today's topic is going to be history. In particular, it's going to be ancient history concerning the Phoenicians. With me today is Karma Love. Karma, you want to say hi?
Hi, everyone.
Hello, Karma. Now, last time we were on here, we had a pretty good conversation, and I ended up messing all that up, and I just wanted to apologize to you about that, Karma.
What do you mean
About
yesterday with your story?
no, the one with the
Oh,
history.
yeah.
We actually did have a pretty good conversation there. So, but the good news is I want to go back over it and discuss the part where we left off because it was actually getting interesting, and I figured I would start it off with. Let me make sure I got everything set up. Yeah, I wanted to start it up with the what was it? I believe we were talking about Santa Chuniatheon,
Okay, yeah.
and then we got to Tawatus. And Tawatus is actually a pretty interesting topic too, because Tawatus is the Phoenician name for Toth.
Yeah, I remember that. As I was I said tooth under my breath, but I didn't want to say it wrong, and I'm just pulling up my notes to make sure, like, yeah. Because yeah, okie dokie.
So that I think would be excellent. You know what I mean, to get started up and everything.
Yeah, because we were talking about Neoplatism, and yeah, I remember now.
Now Neoplatism is good too,
Paleo Bibles.
but it kind of takes you off focus with the Phoenicians and the Egyptians, especially because there was this tight connection between them. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And like with the Egyptians, you can see where that connection is with the Phoenicians, and even later on with the Hittites, because they basically had the same beliefs when it comes to the Thoth. And there was a big bond there. Don't get me wrong, they had like wars and battles. I think they had like one of the biggest battles in history too, but like they also had a real tight bond. They considered each other like brothers, you know what I mean? Like there
Orpheus is what I was reading about here. I was just looking.
now Eusebius of Pamphylia was the bishop of Caesarea that we were talking about, of Caesarea in Palestine, and that was what we were talking about before, Preparatio Evangelica. But Sanitarium of Berytus is who we finally got down to, and his name is the god Sukken has given, and Sukken was the Phoenician god. Alright. Now he was a Phoenician sage, priest, and writer. He lived before the Trojan times, so this was way before the Trojan Wars. Okay, and judging from the fragments of the Phoenician history, Sennacherib appears to have been a contemporary of Semiramis, the queen of Assyria, the wife of Ninus, with whom she founded Nineveh in 2000 BC. And Nineveh was the city I told you about where they used to hang the skin of their enemies on the walls. You know? So,
Yeah, I'm just yeah, I was reading, but can you spell? Oh wait a minute.
Senachiniathon.
Yes,
Senachiniathon. It's
yes.
SANCHUNIATHON.
Okay.
Now,
think
of Berytus, that just means Berytus just means Beirut. So he's from Beirut.
I thought I had this already. I think I must have closed that tab because I remember reading this. Philo Biblis. No, that's not it.
Now,
Okay, go ahead. I apologize. Just I this is something I had. Yeah, I thought I had this already. This Santa Trinithian, but maybe I closed it out and I didn't save it because I remember reading some of this stuff, but maybe not.
now, what it says is his book goes back into fabled antiquity. Santa Chinathion, like Magasa in India, is said to have been a compiler of extremely ancient theogonic and historical documents that have been transmitted to him uh, either by oral tradition or in writing. And I know that that's true because like I've heard I know from what other people have said, I should say, that's what he did. He would listen to oral traditions, like where people would tell their stories orally,
Yeah.
or in writing. Like if somebody brought him a text, he would gather them up and add them to his book. Santa Chuniatheon derived the sacred lore from the mystic inscriptions on the Nephwatis, probably Hamanan sun pillars, which stood in Yahweh.
And where?
In Yahweh. And that's interesting because Yahweh is a Jewish word. I believe Yahweh has to do with that area when it comes to Israel. Because Yahweh is just a little bit off from Yahweh.
Yeah, for that mama. Oh, my third eye. Yahweh. See, Yahweh, as they even say it as the same. Is it Yahweh or Yahweh? And then mine, blah, 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 blah. See, they say it could be used.
Now, the god Javu, Jevo.
Interchangeably, Yahweh or Yahweh. What did you say? J-E... Spell it again?
Jevo.
Jehovah. No.
He dedicated it to Abubal or Abubal, king of Berytus, Beirut. The story was thought to be fictional because of its reference to Berytus. However, excavation in Berytus in recent years proved that the city may be older than Byblos, that has cultural tradition to 8000 BC. His Phoenician history may be regarded as one of the most authentic memorials of the events which took place before the flood. It begins with a legendary cosmology and relates to how the first two mortals were begotten by the wind spirit and his wife, Ba'u, darkness. It refers to the fall, the production of fire, the invention of huts and clothing, the origin of the arts of agriculture, hunting, fishing, and navigating, and the beginning of human civilization. Atheon gives a curious account of descendants in the line of Cain. His history of the descendants of the line of Seth reads like the record in Genesis. So that is Santa Chuniathon, and that's pretty interesting. And that's the area that I was just here recently getting involved in and researching because of Tawatis. And the story that I'm getting from it is like Senechuniathon wrote of Tawatis being mortal. He wasn't a deity. He was a intelligent human who actually first developed writing, and then he migrated from Beirut and that area in the Phoenician area down into Egypt, and he taught them how to write. At least that's what I've made out of it. Now, Tawatis came from Bablos, which is Beirut, Phoenicia, that shows a continuous cultural tradition to 8000 BC. He played his flute to the chief deity of Bablos, the moon goddess Alat Nikal.
Wait, say the name again. This the moon goddess. Say it again.
The moon goddess Baalat, B-A-A-L-A-T. Those are separated. And then Nikal, separated. And that's Nikkal. Taautos was called Thoth by the Greeks and Jehuti by the Egyptians. Mythology of Taautos is echoed in the god Dionysius, or Njurth, the snake priest who was the consort of the moon goddess. The snake priest was also represented by the symbol of a pillar, a wand, or a caduceus. The Greeks equated Thoth with the widely traveled Hermes. According to the Egyptian tradition, Osiris traveled the world with Thoth. Asclepius, aka As Eshmun, is responsible for carrying on the teachings of Taautos on snake priesthood.
Yeah, the Brotherhood of the Snake, the Brotherhood of the Dragon. They say Lucifer is the one true God, symbol represented by the Caduceus, and devoted to guarding the secret of the ages. But that's something separate that I was learning about. It was just funny because you mentioned that, and I had notes on it, the Caduceus, and which is the medical field symbol as well. Which definitely not coincidental at all.
Well, see, that breaks down even into the Bible with the Christians and Jews too, because when Moses came out of Egypt,
the staff.
Yeah, he had the staff, and like snakes would bite the Jews, and he told them to not have fear of the snakes because as long as he had that staff, they wouldn't harm him. They left him alone. And now it goes on to say, in the early ages of Christianity, some monks, such as Pachamulius, was a seraphic priest before he became a monk. Similarly, Ormus is said to have been a seraphic priest before being converted by Saint Mark. He fused those mysteries with Christianity and established a school of Solomonic wisdom. Herewith, Phoenician mythology and Christian theology are explored and analyzed through the pens of two major icons of both faiths, Eusebius of Caesarea and Philobiblos.
Yes, that's who I have here. And I was reading about him here.
Yeah.
Yeah, he talked about him last week. So this all goes back to the same thing.
Yeah.
Cool.
See, Philos, Biblos, and Porphyri are, mostly Porphyri. He's the one that started the Neoplatonist movement.
That's why we got into Neoplatonism, because I have him Porphyri, but it's also a sort of rock as well. Porphyri the Tyri was a Neoplaton philosopher, and but Porphyri, born in Lebanon, yeah, and then he's influenced by Plato, which I remember they were thinking that Plato. We were talking about how they think Plato is the responsible for the Neoplatonism movement,
Yeah,
and
and
yeah,
they're
it's
two
not.
totally different things
Yeah, two totally
altogether.
different concepts, right? I
Yeah.
remember so much of that from our conversation last week. Excuse me, I had to warm my tea up again, so that's the beeping in the background.
Now, the Phoenician history is the oldest non-coded document of our historical archives. Furthermore, it is particularly valuable because of its author. Senechuniathon was a free man who did not hesitate to announce myths. Now, that's the part that I read the other day. So, judging from the fragments of the Phoenician history, Senechuniathon appears to have been a contemporary of Semiramis 2,000 years before Christ. If so, his book would go back into fabled antiquity. Senechuniathon, like Vagasa in India, is said to have been a compiler of extremely ancient theological and historical documents that have been transmitted to him either by oral tradition or writing. So that's what we went over in the last one. Um, now,
Pausanias, yeah, here he is. And Iamblichus, you just him right here. I'm just reading. They were saying, showing a correlation between Iamblichus and Plotinus to Porphyri or Porphyri. Am I saying it right now? Porphyri.
yeah, Porphyra.
Hmm. So when you so I guess for me, how would you describe their influence in regards to developing culture? Because I how do we correlate it towards like our, I guess I would like to say our transformations or our development evolution, more so probably would be the correct terminology. How do we correlate their influence in regards to such?
Well, first you have to take into consideration Toth, okay, Tawatas. Alright.
Yeah.
Now, Tawatas was eventually created into Toth. He also became Hermes Trismegistus, and a lot of secret societies formed around that, and mystery schools. Like back during the old days of Greece, they had mystery schools, and Neoplatonism was a big part of that. They practice in the mystery schools and the teachings and stuff, and they like Porphyri. All right, not everything that he wrote was barbaric. I mean, he was very scientific in a lot of things that he did, and he was inspired by these teachings, and they were just handed off. And really saying that the Greeks stole these people's freaking heritage isn't true. I should re-say that. You know what I mean? They basically just merged it into their cultures.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And all of these people back in those days did that. You know what I mean? Like the Egyptians.
They do it now. I
Yeah,
mean,
they do it
every
now.
because we all come from the same place. But that's what I was talking about before. We make a big deal about the separation, but the truth be the same. One unit, like it all started as one, and then it broke off into different cultures and different areas. But because of the foundation, the roots, the where we come from, it being completely connected, it seems as if they're taking cultures or we're taking cultures, or you get they're acting black or they're acting white, but literally we are like the same, not the same people. We're not created equal, let's not do it like that, but we come from the same place. So it's inevitable when you're getting fine tuned and getting down to the inside of who you are and where you come from, that you're going to incorporate cultures that seem different from what you may not been practicing currently. I don't
Now,
think people understand that part though.
now see, like with Philo of
Follow
Berea,
Biblis. Mm-hmm.
yeah. Now, and he wrote uh, his collection of 9 books that he divided Senatornathion's collections. He wrote a book and divided it into 9 books, or actually, he has 9 books that of it
I see these.
that he did. And the preface of the first book he writes as follows: things being thus, Senatornathion, a very studious and active man who desired above all else to know the principles of things and that of which all that exists is formed, diligently inquired into the writings of Tawatus, having learned that of all the men who have ever appeared under the sun, Tawatus was the first to conceive the invention of letters and open the way for written documents. He therefore made him the foundation of his entire discourse. It was Tawatos whom the Egyptians called Toit, and the Alexandrians called Thoth, which the Greeks translated as Hermes or Mercury. Now, it was the Alexandrians that actually called him Thoth. Now, the Egyptians called him Toit.
See, and I never knew that. This is the first time I'm ever even hearing that. And even when you look it up, like you look up TOTH and you just look him up, it's like they automatically pull up like all the stuff about Egypt and not even really say much. Well, I might just not have gotten deep enough. THOTH. And I have them all is Egypt. See, ancient Egypt.
Yeah.
Everything is ancient Egypt. And you're saying it's the Alexandria. That's wild.
And see,
Egypt.
Alexandria
Everything's Egypt.
Alexandria is where everything gets warped, or where it always got warped, because the Alexandrians would they were notorious for that stuff. Like they wanted to mingle all these religions. You know what
And
I
that was
mean?
near Lebanon, right? Isn't
No,
Alexandria?
that was Alexandria is right in Egypt, right? You know where the Nile comes out?
Yeah.
Okay, Alexandria was right there in that area.
Okay.
And a lot of people don't include Alexandrians as like actual like Egyptians, really, because like that was more of Alexander the Great and all the Greeks when they came to Egypt, and they kind of influenced the Egyptians to where they had a mix of Greek and Egyptian theology going on there, and that's where Thoth came from. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they're notorious for that too, because like I was getting ready to say, the Gnostics. Okay, the Gnostics are a good example of that as well. Like if you read the Gnostics, you'll hear a real strong Egyptian influence in it, and it's not really the Egyptians, it's the Alexandrians that did all that, you know, because Christianity hit real big in that region, and they started incorporating again, and that's one of the things I do.
Is it Nostick or Nostics? Gnostics?
It's GNO.
What? Okay, hold on 1 second.
GNOSTIC.
Got it.
All
Okay.
right. Now, having said these things, Philo denounced the newcomers who, after those writings, wrongly and untruthfully introduced allegories, theories, and expositions of physics into fables, concerning the gods. He continues, but more recent religious scholars destroyed all vestiges of events that occurred after the origin of things, inventing allegories within fables and combining them in such a way as to unite them with the movement of the universe. This is how they instituted mysteries and spread such thick shadows over all those things that it was no longer easy to determine what had really occurred. But Sanchuniathon discovered the secret writings of the Ammonians, which were known to very few people, and studied everything they contained. He then achieved his goal by setting aside the fable based on allegories until in later times there appeared priests who wanted to dissimulate the truth and restore to honor that fable which was the origin of the mystery and had not yet penetrated among the Greeks. After more observations, Philo continued in his preface. It must be stated at the outset, for greater clarity and impartial knowledge of everything that follows, that the most ancient of the barbarians, notably the Phoenicians and Egyptians, who have served as guides for all other men, considered the greatest gods to be those who made discoveries to aid our existence, or who conferred benefits of any kind on the various populations. They called them benefactors because of the many benefits they owed to them. They worshipped them as gods. As for that purpose, they re-edificated already existing temples to them. They erected pillars and branches to them and worshipped those objects with great devotion. The Phoenicians dedicated their greatest festivals to them and gave the constellations the names of their kings, some of whom were already regarded as gods. They recognized as natural gods only the sun, the moon, the planets, the stars, and other things in that general category, so that there were mortal gods and immortal gods. And that is what is written by Philo. That's pretty good. That's some of the stuff that I remember going over on that, you know what I mean? And that's basically what he's saying is what I was saying, you know, like they took these humans who were benefactors and actually help man benefit from their good deeds, and they deified them, made them into gods. Then there was, you know, mortal gods and immortal gods.
And see, I had no idea about that part. I thought
well, think about
history.
Think about it, you know, I mean, everybody's like taking it off of facts, but you go back through the King's List in the Sumerians, okay? And it just seems odd that freaking kings are also gods.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you just kind of put two and two together on that stuff. I mean, and I get a lot of grief when I mention that, you know, that there is kind of a correlation going on there with them. So,
but what I don't understand. Why would there be an issue with bringing attention to or acknowledgement of the correlation? Is it, I guess it's denial? Is it unwilling to accept the truth, or like what?
There's a lot of people that take this stuff on face value. I mean,
so they don't like to dig deeper to find out like to find out the facts. They just basically get told something and that's what it is. And if they've been shown it a few times repeatedly, then that's what it is without doing any of their own research.
Well, getting the facts is kind of the key word right there. You know what I mean? Like on a lot of this history, it's so ancient that they don't even.
It's difficult, right?
Yeah, I mean they don't have the technology available to them. You know what I mean?
That's where the universe comes into play. You can get every single answer from literally connecting to the universe. And that's what I'm always talking about. And people, I know it sounds far fetched, but like trees have souls. Trees have been here for hundreds of years. If you really sit and connect with self, you can connect with nature, and nature will tell you anything that you seek to know. And if you actually just engage with it, with the belief that you're going to get your answers, you'll hear those answers. Even if you say, hey, if there's some type of mystical or ancient scroll that's missing and you're looking for this ancient scroll, and you really commit yourself to getting connected and in tune, you'll say okay, and you'll go to the area. Or even if you don't go to the area, you just go outside and you ask nature, and then you'll be guided to where that scroll is. But you have to believe in it. That's one of the biggest things, though. You have to believe in the ability to connect with stuff.
You want me to finish this up? Because I mean, listen to this after just saying that, okay?
Okay.
Okay. He supposes that the dark and windy air, or a breath of dark air and a muddy, infernal chaos, were infinite in both time and extension. When that wind, he says, fell in love with its own principles, a conjunction resulted, and that coming together was called desire. Such was the principle of the creation of all things. The wind had no knowledge of what it had produced. From that cohabitation of the wind came Mot. Such was the sole germ of the creation and origin of all things. Animals appeared, but they were lacking in sensibility. They gave birth to intelligent animals named Zephysimen, that is, observers of the sky. Mot had the shape of an egg when he was formed. He became luminous and produced the sun, the moon, the stars, and the great constellations. Such is the cosmogony of the Phoenicians, which openly introduces atheism. Next comes the generation of animals, the male and the female, where on the earth and in the sea. No, next comes the generation of animals, the male and the female were on the earth and in the sea. These things, writes Philo, were found in the cosmogony of dissertations of Toatus, supported by the conjunctures and convictions which Sanchuniathon conceived and made known by means of his insight. After speaking of the winds, Notus and Boreas, which were defiled, Philos adds, such were the inventions of religious worship that were in conformity with the weakness and cowardice of their inventors. Now that's kind of where I split with Philos, you know what I'm saying? Because if you listen to the story, he's kind of introducing, he's trying to introduce the one thing that freaking Senna Chuniatheon wouldn't have agreed with, because he was trying to stay away from the lore and the allegories and stuff like that, you know what I mean?
Yeah, just to have something that could be solid so that way people could kind of grasp onto. When you started doing abstract, it kind of gets dissonant for other people. Well, people that are kind of afraid of what could be in the abyss type of thing. So if you would like to be relatable, in most cases, people attempt to stick with something that can be seen, something that can be felt, or at least a solid explanation of such. So yeah, I can see where they would differ. because one is more of, I don't want to say mystical because it's not more mythical, because it's not mythical. It's true, but it's presented as mythical because
MOT.
it just seems surreal. But that's the crazy part about it, because you're talking about the speaking of the winds and the wind creations and creations from the winds and just the breezes and like literally that nature causing creation. But imagine what you can do with nature if you allow it to. With him, but he's causing nature to create. Okay, we understand that's how the story is being told, but
Yeah.
that's
Now,
just one.
see, you got to understand too. Ma'at is an Egyptian deity. All right,
Mm.
and the wind had no knowledge of what it had produced. The cohabitation of the wind came Ma'at. From the cohabitation of the wind came Ma'at.
Mm.
Okay, and now you see right there where he's Phoenician, and all of a sudden he's introducing
Egyptian culture.
Egyptian culture. You know what I mean? And really, Ma'at, I really never took time to notice if it was actual Phoenician or if it was actual Egyptian or if it was Alexandrian. That's one area that I do need to touch up on, but that's what struck out to me. I mean, and this is a Phoenician philosopher using Ma'at in his writings too.
And
Which
Ma is thought to come from
Ma'at is supposed.
Egypt. But
And see, I thought for sure that Ma'at was supposed to be female, but I could be
I
wrong.
just thought Egypt completely wrong. Ma God, Ma was it? It is Canaanite.
It's Canaanite.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Canaanite, god of death. Maybe I
yeah,
spelled it wrong. MOT, right?
yeah.
Mesopotamian, yeah, Mesopotamian Canaanite deity.
Now, let's see. So he's
Phoenician, Phoenician, Hebrew, Bible, Arabic was the Canaanite god of death and the underworld. But I'm sure we could go deeper because this is just a quick. This is Wikipedia, so Wikipedia is not as reliable as we'd like. But I see a lot of different sites quoting him as Canaanite. The Semitic,
no. See that would
Semitic god of death.
now see Canaanite is what we were discussing the other day. It's a generalized word for all the cultures that was living along the Levant. And the Levant is the region that starts up by freaking Turkey.
Yeah, in Lebanon and where all that area was.
And it stretches down into Egypt right there along the coast.
What was it called again? Hold on, cause Levant.
Yeah, the Levant.
Excuse me. No, that's not it. West Sussex, a civil parish, Levant, blah 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 blah. No, that's not it.
Anatolia.
Oh, I was spelling it wrong. I found it though.
It's Levant, yeah.
Yeah, I was spelled region in Asia. That's wild because it's right there. Israel, Iraq. Yeah, okie dokie. All right, I apologize for holding you up.
That's fine. Now, according to this, the Levant it consists of Israel, Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, Palestine. So, within that area, that's where the Canaanites came from, and
yeah, Cairo. I see all of that here. Damascus, Mount Sinai. Yep. Syria, Damascus. Amman. Let me see you. You sound something. There's Jordan. Jordan.
now with the Amtuat, they would always refer to his name as Ma'at on there. So I'm wondering if that got something to do with it too.
King of Jordan, since 1999.
I don't even know for sure if I've still got the old notes for it. Ancient history. Yeah, the Book of Gates.
Book of Gates.
Pull that up and I'll run a search on the word Mott. It should be in there, I believe. If it's not, it's in the other one, and I don't have it at the moment. Hopefully they got a search for it.
I searched the Book of Gates, and I've been doing the same. Look at this. I had been doing the same browser, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, can we know where you're at right now? No. No, you cannot. Why do you want to? As far as my concern. Like, I've been doing all of this. I done struck a nerve with this Book of Gates.
So we've got Mother so far in there.
Prince of the
Nation.
Guidebook. I wonder if I can get this on Apple.
Yeah, Mott's not in there. Yeah. I thought I heard it in that book, but I could have been wrong. There's only 10 mentions, and they all relate to Mother. But yeah, Mott is where we're at now. I'm off topic. I gotta figure out what the hell I'm talking about. Yeah, so that's Canaanite, and that's what'd you say? Just basically Canaanite.
Yeah, that's what it says here. Let me go back to it. I was looking at this Book of Gates and attempting to find it. Let me see if I have my tabs open. It says, oh wow, thank you for being distracting. My Egypt, blah 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 blah. Yeah, Mesopotamian Canaanite deity was a god. See, and this one says Mot was the god of sterility and the master of all barren places. And then traditionally, Mot and Baal were perpetually engaged in a seasonal struggle. Baal, that's Britannica. Then it says, but see, Wikipedia says that it was the Canaanite god of death, whereas Britannica says Mot was the god of sterility. That's like sterility, yeah, because sterile, so I guess that makes sense. Sterility. Oh, okay. Now it says Mot was Semitic, death, ancient West Semitic god of the dead and of all the powers that oppose life and fertility. He was the favorite son of the god El and the most prominent enemy of the
Yeah,
god Baal.
yeah. Now
Mm-hmm.
see, El is the Christian god and the Jewish god. The Canaanites all practiced El, and every one of them had like their different versions, kind of like what the Egyptians did. And each city within the Levant worshipped El in a different way. That's why.
And that's crazy
That's
because
why.
have you heard of Asiatics?
Hmm.
Yeah, they use L and Bay, L at the end of their surname.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Baal is also supposed to be the son of El. Baal.
No, it's a. Oh yeah. Yeah. My helper was annually killed by Baal's sister, and it aided in Anath, and she aided in Baal's resurrection. But see, he was sometimes called the creator, possessor of heaven and earth, father of all the gods except for Baal. See, look. Hold on. El was described as the titular head of the pantheon, husband of Asherah, and father of all the gods except for Baal.
Yeah. I mean, I was under the impression that Baal was his son. You know what I'm saying? But
Duh.
it got really like muddied in that area. Like El, people today are trying to relate El to freaking Enki, and I've found no evidence that Enki and El are the same, one and the same. If anything, El would be more closely related to Enlil. You know what I mean? But
And here it says it's commonly used as synonym for Yahweh.
yeah,
Mm,
Yahweh is the God,
God.
is the Jewish God, which is very controversial, and like Jewish people really don't like being included into
Mm-hmm.
the Canaanites. You know what I mean? They like to be distinct and set aside on their own. Which I can understand that too, because like their beliefs are a lot more passive than what the other Canaanite beliefs are. I mean, they were pretty out there. But, okay, now after that, it goes on to talk about the birth of mortal men in a divine race. No, birth of mortal men of a divine race. The mortal men Aeon and Protogonos were born of the wind Calpea and his wife Ba'u. Aeon discovered the food provided by trees. They were the parents of Genos and Geni, who lived in Phoenicia. Great droughts came, and they reached up their hands towards the sky and the sun. He says that they regarded the sun as the master god of the sky and named him Bel-Salmon, which in Phoenician means master of the sky. He was the Zeus of the Greeks. Then Philo attacks the error of the Greeks. It is not without reason that we make this distinction known. It is in order to establish the true meaning, which has been misinterpreted, of these names applied to objects. Misled by the uncertainty of translation, the Greeks took them in another meaning. From Genos, son of Aeon,
Aeon.
Aeon, and Protogonos were born new mortal children named Phos, Pyre, and Phlox, light, fire, and flame. They invented fire by rubbing pieces of wood against each other and taught its use. They had children of great size and marked superiority, who gave their names to the mountains of which they were the sovereigns. It was from them that Mount Cassius and the Lebanon Mountains and the anti-Lebanon Mountains took their name.
Cassius?
Cassius, yeah. It was from them that Mount Cassius, the Lebanon Mountains, and the anti-Lebanon Mountains took their names. They gave birth to the Sumerimus and the Hepsirianos, celestial height. Sanchuniathon observed that men were named after their mothers, and that women shamelessly gave themselves to any man they saw. Then he says, Hipposirianos lived in Tyre and invented huts made of reeds, rushes, and papyrus. He had a dispute.
Philobelius is from, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Now,
Okay.
he had a dispute with his brother Usus, who was the first to think of taking the skins of animals he had killed and making them into a covering for his body. Torrential rains and violent winds devastated Tyre and broke the trees. The forest was swept by fire. Usus took a tree, stripped it of its branches, and was the first to venture into the sea. He consecrated 2 steles to fire and the wind, and worshiped them by spilling on them the blood of animals he had taken in his hut. Many centuries had gone by since the age of Hepsirianos, when Agrias and Alias, inventors of fishing and hunting, were born. It was they who provided those arts with their implements. From them came two brothers who invented iron and production of all things that makes use of it. One of them, Chrysor, devoted himself to sorcery, predictions, and the composition of discourses. He was the same as Hephaestus, who invented the fish hook and bait, the fishing line, and the raft. He was the first of all men to sail on the sea, and that is why he was worshipped as a divinity after his death. He was called Zeus Mitius. So it goes on even further right there.
Okay, so who's Poseidon? Like, in regards to this, would it be possible that that guy would have been correlated to, or to be kind of like, or no relation possible, or is it just definitely always the possibility, but not likely?
Now, at the beginning, if you remember what they were saying, these are mortal men of a divine race, and it also mentions that they were also giants. Okay?
Ivy, where have you been?
So it's kind of interesting on that aspect. Like they and a lot of this correlates with the Old Testament too, with what the Old Testament was saying. It's kind of interesting. I could see where the Canaanite beliefs kind of filtered their way into Judaism too, and it's all Semitic. Like, people think that Jews are the only ones that were Semitic, but they aren't. They're just a distinction of Semitic people, you know.
And I wonder why that is. Like, why is it to where that's the only culture associated with being quote unquote Semitic? But there are so many cultures that actually were Semitic. You know what I mean? Like, that's not making sense to me there.
Well, a lot of the northern areas that were above what would be now Saudi Arabia, that was all. They were either Semitic or they were Aryan, and up around Iran, those were the majority of those were the Aryans and stuff, and a lot of the Semitics were from Iraq all the way to Lebanon. You know what I mean? And then what happened was the freaking the Arab invasion, where the Arabs came up out of like Saudi Arabia and those areas, and they invaded the rest of them. They took over Turkey.
When did this happen?
This happened back during the time of Muhammad, just as Christianity was starting off.
Developed. Okay, so and you said it's called what was it called? The invasion.
Arab invasion.
Arab invasion.
Okay.
See, I just want to look it up. That's why I'm asking.
That whole region, I mean, like, people have a hard time understanding the history of it because of how much chaos is going on in the Middle East and stuff. You know what I mean? But if you have patience and you actually focus on it and spend time on it, you can kind of figure it out. And I still don't know a lot about it. I mean, that's what's so fascinating about that region is it's immersed.
A lot to learn.
I mean, there's so much history in that area. So much different cultures.
Let me put this on my tabs because I have a bunch of stuff I have to do. And like, this is from my history, just from my knowledge, the stuff that I've been doing with you, a lot of it, and as it relates. But eventually, how you do this type of stuff that I'm fluent in, I'd like to be able to be like present, like, so I'll probably be like reading some of the books that I'm reading and stuff like that, just a little bit, not much. But
Yeah.
the stuff that you're doing is the stuff that for whatever reason it's related to what I'm studying, and it'll explain why and how these laws that we have now currently have been developed, just not even the laws, the culture itself. And so that's why it's significant. That's why I feel like it's significant what you do, because not maybe not a lot of people understand it, or maybe they're not present for it, but excuse me, the answers that we're looking for is in what you're doing right now.
But like a lot of like they make statements that just if they really would pay attention, they'd understand that it's not true. Like even in this one, they mention the fact that that Philo is he's introducing atheism. Okay, and if you read what Philos is really saying, he's actually talking about paganism. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's
I
not,
don't know why it said that, because I didn't hear anything about until you said it just now. I didn't understand a correlation to atheism.
yeah.
So that's why I was just going to do more digging, because I heard you say that today, but I didn't get that. See, there it
No,
is. I knew I had already.
I didn't get that either. Like a lot of the stuff that he mentioned here had more to do with paganism than it did anything to do with atheism.
But that would be why they say it's atheism, so that way people will denounce it, and they'll say that it's, but because paganism, people like to incorporate it even if they're quote unquote Christians, or regardless of the fact, they like to overlap it and say, well, this is acceptable. And like, so if we say you get your pagan holidays, you have your, you know what I mean, we're going to incorporate what benefits us. So if he's attempting to tell you, hey, this is what you're doing in regards to this, and this is what should be done, then they'll just correlate. They'll say, oh, okay, actually we'll just charge this as atheism, so no one pays him that much attention to what he actually is doing. I mean, at least it makes sense. This is discrediting something that's true, because if it's not if it's not the norm, or if it's not the trajectory, what people would like to be shown, then it's easy for them to just deny it by making it something that they know people dislike.
No, just so you know, too, this came off of Phoenicia.org, and it's the largest compilation of, and repository for the whole studies of it. Like they cover extensive stuff about the Canaanites, the Phoenician, and.
Can you spell it again? This is Phoenician, like, right?
PHOENICA, and then .org.
This keeps. I gotta be spelling it wrong. A server with the specific host name cannot be found. PHOENE.
No,
I.
And then CIA.
There we go. Okie dokie.
And they have quite a bit of stuff too. I mean, that's pretty good repository there. You can get a lot of information from that. But
This is talking about going on trips. I got the Phoenician.
like, hey, come along with us. We'll take you along and give you a tour of all this stuff.
That'll be dope. That'll be so dope. I mean, I can. Whoa! Now I'm really tripping, because now I just.
Like they've got a freaking image gallery too. You know that, right?
Yeah, I'm seeing here his Camelback. Am I not at the right page? Camelback? Am I? No.
I don't know.
Now it's just taking me to Expedia. Let me just.
Now on that, I was just like showing you that's what it is. The Phoenician Encyclopedia is basically but like just.
I had to type it wrong. I'm gonna redo it. Here it goes.
Browse through it and enjoy it. I was just pointing you to what I was using there. That's all I was doing. But yeah, it's a pretty good setup. It's actually pretty cool. Yeah. But How long do we? Yeah, we're at the 1 hour point. So,
Yeah.
um, I'm gonna end this, and we'll come back to it later on. I think that what I wanted to cover was actually important, like the Tawadas. Tawadas is very important because, like, even in the beginning episodes when I did it, I was mentioning Egypt, and uh, started getting to where I wanted to go into Phoenician, and Toth is a really good example of what I was talking about, So I think that was covered pretty well.
Yeah, and especially gives me something to do some research on, because Tawadas and Toth being basically the same person
Yeah,
but in different cultures is kind of heavy. So
and like with Philos and Porphyri, kind of separate them from what's being said there too, because they have their own agendas as well. You know what I mean?
okay,
So just to realize that, because like I said, that I mean, they basically like to incorporate things during this time period, and they still do it, like you said. But they were really big on it back then, and the reason why they did it is because they had to bring kingdoms under their obedience. You know what I mean? So why not just take their gods and mingle them in the, with our gods, and we got a new god to worship?
right. But at the same time, what if maybe they're the same? Like they're all, like it might not be a mix. It really might be just signals being crossed. And uh-oh.
Huh?
And I'm attempting to light candles, but maybe it's a signal being crossed, and they're actually like they're connected. We don't know the connection, or we have yet to discover the correlation, but they actually are
Well,
one.
for me, the best way I could say is just, I mean, figure out how long ago it was when
Oh, the
Toth was
timeline.
mentioned. Yeah, and then
Right.
like compare that to when the Canaanites and the Phoenicians started mentioning them. So,
Okay. No, that makes more sense what you're saying. Okay, okay. Oh, maybe it did. Oops.
but
Looking for a light bulb. I found it.
are you wanting to do that, or are you you want to continue this until later?
What do you mean? We can do more now? If you can do more, you said you're gonna stop. You said you're gonna stop at an hour. I mean, like whatever.
Like
This
it's
is
an hour and 2 minutes now.
it's a, it's okay. I mean, like, I just was getting the light bulb from my little desk area so I could be more committed to the research because this one was flickering. So I mean, it's
Well,
all good.
stay on where you're at and build up some information, and then next week we'll get into it, and we'll start doing more stuff, because I'm still going to be doing the Phoenicians. It's like I said, this is probably the most interesting when it comes to ancient history, is researching the Phoenicians. They That's where most of the stuff comes from.
You're the first to tell me about them. I
Yeah.
mean, like, I
But
never learned about them.
I'm going to end the stream though, okay?
Oh, okie dokie. If I have questions, I know where to find you.
Yes, you do.
Have a good day. I'll see you tomorrow. Well, I'll hear you tomorrow.
All right. I'll talk
All
to you
right.
then.
See you. Be safe.
You too.